This is episode 191 about chronic illness. Welcome to Wellness in Every Season. We talk all things wellness to help you align yourself, align with your goals, find balance, and recalibrate. The statistics keep growing on how many people have chronic illness. Even if you don't have it, you will know somebody who does. Today, I have Dr. Brad, a passionate caregiver with the decades of research and clinical application of functional medicine in restoring health to those with chronic illness. It is common for him to be able to give people their life back that no other caregivers have been able to help. His compassionate understanding comes from years of his own struggles with chronic illness and the Lord giving him tools to help himself and others get free from ongoing sickness. Welcome, Dr. Brad.
Thanks for inviting me.
I'm excited. Let's talk about your symptoms.
I was 5 years old. End up in an emergency room late at night with a doctor saying, do this. No explanation of what's going on, why it's there, how it's going to resolve, how to avoid it. I'm 5 years old thinking, this is crazy. I got gut-wrenching pain. It woke me up in the middle of the night, and I can't sleep. I don't know why it's there. Some weird rectal thing. A couple years later, our family took a vacation in the mountains. I got some sickness up there that ate the world spinning around me 24/7, 365 days a year for years. I walked like a drunken sailor, real wide stance, because the world was spinning around me so much. I had so much vertigo, so nauseous, ready to puke all the time that I had to concentrate to stay on my feet. Really athletic, really coordinated, really fast reflexes, but the whole world spinning around me. And it really shaped a lot of character and concentration just to stay on my feet and do the things I want to do. I started cooking when I was 5 years old because of I realized way back then if I ate different than the rest of my family, I felt better. I started experimenting with food at 5 years old. One of my brothers brought home strep throat. God, me and him and other people with a bunch of antibiotics. That filled me full of fungal infections. I'm in early grade school, full of fungal infections. My tonsils look like blue cheese with great big huge fissures and that white and blue fuzzy stuff coming out. Later I got Lyme disease. No doctor figured out why I was always having ear infections. I'd figure it out myself. We've been using those tools to help other people. I had a young gal, 17, failed to thrive her entire life. She'd been seeing some of the most renowned specialists in the world at the time. Nobody had any idea what was going on. She hadn't cycled in a year. She let us measure 3 months after we started. The doctors threatened to call social services and rip her out of her homeschooled home, put in foster care because they figured the parents had to be abusive because the doctors couldn't figure it out and it wasn't working. She was full of Lyme disease. She was born with Lyme disease and she went through puberty a second time in college. She's totally dyslexic, couldn't exercise. She couldn't do what she liked. As she started to heal up, this creative mind woke up and she's really artistic, really creative. She met Mr. Wright. She moved halfway across country, invited us out to their wedding. Fiance comes up to us before the wedding and says to me and my wife, I am so glad you guys are here. If it wasn't for you, this day would never happen. He was choked up. She celebrated over a decade the day she was Lyme-free. Medical doctors told her she'd never have children. They got 2 children, happy family. That's the kind of story we have.
I didn't know you could be born with Lyme disease.
Lyme disease is a fluid transfer disease. Ticks will transfer fluid from an infected host. Anything that takes fluid from an infected host and exposes another one transfers it. So saliva, you share a milkshake on a real date. It doesn't share food, kissing sexual fluids, crosses placental barrier. It's in breast milk. It's in 2 to 3% of the blood bank in Minnesota and Wisconsin, transferred by mosquitoes, spiders, biting flies, you name it. No matter what people want to say and think, there's no microbe respects any boundaries.
I'm a good candidate for that. They love me. I have to use hardcore DEET bug spray. Otherwise, they don't care.
Bug spray is really toxic. They're all neurotoxins. There's better ways. Essential oils are as good, if not better.
Tell me.
Rosemary is one. You could use that for perfume. It's a real deep smell that's really alluring at the same time. You could use it for that. There's cedarwood oil. Both work pretty good. Take some rosemary, run it between your hands and rub that on your pants, around your neck, and wherever else you want. Eucalyptus is another one.
Do you ever end up giving ideas when you're ministering, especially in prisons, where you bring the doctor cap with you too?
I've done a lot of things in life. Generally, what I put my mind to, I do extremely well. So it allows me more of a global understanding, function of everything. You know, 50 years of construction under my belt with that plumbing, electrical, engineering issues, structural issues, fabrication, auto mechanics. There's just a lot that I've done in life, a whole bunch. And it all ties together. Basic things allow everything to work. The more you put your mind to it, the more you realize that it's easy with that basis to use whatever interests somebody, use that subject to explain something that they wouldn't ever expect to be related, but it is. All hormone dysregulation stems from gut dysfunction, food intolerance. The microbes inside of the gut are messed up, and it's the toxicity that comes off with that that dysregulates all the metabolic functions, hormones included. That's a simple reality. When you look at all chronic illness, some might not understand that, but chronic illness is this great big global subject matter that doesn't mean that you're sick. It just means something's not working right inside of the body. And when you take the regulation of things like hormones, right in the base of the skull, we've got this part of the brain called the hypothalamus, registers levels of minerals, gases, hormones, critical for us to stay alive and manage internally relating to the external. So hypothalamus registers all of that. Just behind the bridge of your nose is this pea-sized organ called the pituitary. The hypothalamus measures the circulating levels of hormones. It communicates how good those are doing to the pituitary, and pituitary sends signals out to all the hormonal organs. And either says, attaboy, keep it up, everything's fine, or hey, things are a little low, pick it up or drop it down. Communication is between the hypothalamus and pituitary. Pituitary sends signals to the hormonal organs. What dysregulates all of that is toxicity. And he talked about perimenopause. Hot flashes from toxins and not from estrogen. It can be toxic estrogen, but it's not from the hormones. It's from toxicity. And you deal with the detox pathways, feel the gut, and all that goes away. Other societies don't have the problems we have. They just stop cycling. Women don't go through the insanity they do here in the States.
We have a lot of symptoms and we're told it's normal. Just deal with
No,
it.
not normal. Have you ever heard of the blue zones?
Yes.
Okay, the blue zones is pretty common for people to live 120 years old. They can live a lot longer. Yeah, I don't need to go down those stories, but those people are typically still working in their 90s. Their sexual interaction in their 90s, like 30-year-olds over here, 2 to 3 times a week on average in the 90s.
That's the goal. The reason this podcast exists, align ourselves, our bodies, every dimension of wellness using the 8 dimensions. So we are living as long and as healthily as possible. So we can live into our 90s, 100s, and be fully present. We can have all the finances, but if we aren't taking care of everything else, the money disappears because we're going to the doctor all the time. Or it's now going to be used for an inheritance for somebody else or for you to donate somewhere else. You're not going to have this full and beautiful life if you're not taking care of yourself right now.
In the United States, we have the most costly health care. We have the worst health. That should make it clear that's not the system that's going to allow you to obtain what you just talked about, best health and life. Let's springboard from that and talk about what sets the stage for chronic illness.
Yes, please.
This sets the stage for hormonal dysregulation, metabolic dysfunction, autoimmune disease. I've never seen a case of Lyme disease that wasn't started with this already in place. So if you take your hand and you hold your fingers up in front of your face, your fingers represent the lining of the gut. And your fingers represent what's called microvilli. Those microvilli increase the surface area of the gut about 400 times. It's insane how much surface area they create. Between the fingers, the microvilli create a mucus, and it fills over a capsule over the top. It's in that mucus where all the microbes in the gut live and grow. And when you look at an electron microscope picture of it, it's so clear that food can never touch the microvilli. It's the microbes that come out of the mucus, interact with the food in what's called the lumen hole. The food goes down in the center of the gut. It's the microbes that go up and interact with it, do all the digestion, bring the nutrients back to the microvilli, and the microvilli can absorb those. Same thing goes on in the soil with roots of plants. Microbes present nutrients in the soil to the root, and it absorbs in form. We've got the same thing in all plant life, all animal life. People don't talk about those things. So generally, it's the health of that microbial coating that determines a large part of our life. When that's healthy, your fingers are extended, producing good mucus, and we got healthy microbes. It sets the stage for everything else in the body to be healthy. But if you have anything that creates inflammatory responses inside the gut, it'll take those fingers extended like that, and you roll your fingers into a fist and roll it up so you just see your knuckle. It can turn your gut wall from your fingers extended to just your knuckles in as little as 24 hours. It's a high inflammatory issue. Virtually every medication causes that. NSAIDs, anti-inflammatory issues, over-the-counter antibiotics create that. A lot of your psychological for ADHD and depression, anxiety, all those cause that. Your antifungals destroy the microbiota. As soon as you atrophy the microvilli, there's almost nothing to produce mucus. There's no place for microbes to hide. They all wash down the toilet and pathogens grow. One of the biggest pathogens, Candida. Oral birth control is one of the biggest reasons why women get so many yeast infections and all that. But the flora in our reproductive tract is almost identical to what's in our gut. And it's the gut's the biggest pool of all that stuff. So if the reproductive tract's had problems, so is the gut. And it doesn't heal by itself. The gut's the hardest thing to heal. Once healthy microbes wash down the toilet and we get the pathogens grow, it's got four forms: yeast, fungal, parasite form. When you look at fungus or mold, you see all the fuzz coming off. The fuzz called mycelia. Those are your feeding tubules. And those, all the structures of that are made up of chitin, the same thing that makes the outside skeleton of beetles, crickets, and shrimp. All the cell walls of Candida forms are made of chitin. Your immune system can't do anything with it. And once those little fibers pierce the gut wall, which is only one cell layer thick, the lining is only one cell layer thick, that can break off, float around in the body, becomes a fungal parasite, and then create a new body of fungus wherever it goes. So that's your brain, your joints, bones, everywhere. There's no place that's impervious to that. Those pathogens create all these toxins. And the toxins don't get processed in the normal way. Toxicity does. I'm sure people that are listening, they've heard of liver detoxes. Your liver's last stage of detoxification, the ketchup. We've got 4 detox organs: small intestinal wall, colon wall, microbes inside. And the liver, it receives the blood that returns from the gut, and it filters out microbes that have escaped from the gut. It's got immune function in there for things that have escaped out of the gut, and it's the last place for toxins to be processed. Toxins are processed in 2 different phases. Phase 1, there's 5 different pathways in that, and those pathways make things become free radicals, more toxic than the original toxin. Phase 2 makes those water soluble and more inert, so they can be excreted. If you wipe out the gut wall, you take the microvilli, atrophy them, you lost 1/2 of your detox function in your body. Once that gets wiped out, the flora wipes out, 3 out of 4 detox organs gone. Liver can't make up for all that. Liver gets overwhelmed. Toxins spill out systemically. 3/4 of the immune system is in the gut wall. The gut leaks like a sieve. All the immune function, all the strength immune function is trying to deal with all these toxic things that are coming outside the gut. The immune system has no detox function. The liver is overwhelmed with toxicity. The liver can't even begin to catch up. It spills out systemically. Those toxins get out through the skin and the lungs. All the rash that people get are autoimmune responses from these toxins going out through the secondary elimination organ. And then everybody with asthma, things like that, that's from this same issue going out through the lung. Autoimmune responses going on inside of those. So the only way you can deal with the toxicity is restore the integrity of the gut, restore the microbe in the gut, and generic programs don't do that. People talk about candida cleanses. They're dealing only with the yeast form partially. They're not dealing with the other 4 forms. And it's still, the gut is the hardest thing to deal with. So that's what sets the stage for everything. This global toxicity dysregulates every metabolic function in the body. That's what dysregulates all the hormones. It's what creates all the autoimmune responses. When you look at the research of autoimmune responses, there's an article, I think it's in 2008 from the American Journal of Pathology, that says when you restore the integrity of the gut wall, autoimmune process just quit. We've been doing functional medicine for 4 decades. Fix the gut, you no longer have Crohn's disease, IBS, it goes away. A lot of your things like anxiety, depression, that's linked up to the adrenal. When you look at the hormones that you're talking with the perimenopause, the adrenals make the precursors to sexual hormones. On DHEA and reproductive organs in men are identical. If it's a male child in utero about 7 weeks after conception, a small upsurge of testosterone, the ovaries grab the round ligament, drop down the labia. The ovaries become the testicle, the labia become the scrotum, the round ligament becomes a spermatic cord, the urethra becomes a prostate gland. Problems men have with their prostate later in life, it's the same thing that causes urine problems in women, toxic estrogens. It's never testosterone. And when we take the pre-hormones coming off the adrenals, the pregnenolone DHEA, those get converted in peripheral tissues in both men and women, also in the ovaries and testicles. Progesterone converts into testosterone, and testosterone converts into estrogen. Plus, every hormone, we make some of it. the flora inside of the gut makes some of those also. When you have toxicity, there's an alarm that makes that adrenals push out more cortisol and adrenaline. It steals the pregnatum DHEA to make cortisol, and there's nothing to make the
Oh.
sexual hormones.
That's the stress hormone.
Right.
Cortisol, okay.
Stress and anti-inflammatory hormones. So when there's a chronic alarm system, all the precursors to make sexual hormones get stolen to make the primary stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. There's nothing left to build sexual hormones. You get atrophy in the sexual tissue. Breasts lose fullness, shape, they start to sag. They start to have genital atrophy with them, and you start to have erectile dysfunction. That's why women with chronic illness, perimenopausal areas, and into menopause has a hard time with sexual fulfillment. It's because the hormones have dropped. The erectile tissues don't work without hormones and don't engage. So it really takes an attentive partner to get them fulfilled sexually, because they have to be very aware and address that process with more intention. Every woman with chronic illness, and as you're heading into perimenopause and menopause, in America, they all have erectile dysfunction. No one talks. I've only heard of a couple of other docs that talk. I talk about it all the time because it's such a big thing. They don't talk about women that can't be fulfilled. I think that's a huge issue because sexuality and sexual interaction is something that is at peak interest from very, very young children all the way to the grave. It never ends.
All of this goes back to gut health.
It.
There are amazing things happening behind the scenes here. First, I am opening my podcast up for sponsorships. So if you are an aligned brand with wellness, reach out to me. You can find me wellnessinEverySeason.com/podcast/sponsor. I also have something going on for you listeners. If you've been listening for a while, I interview people who are aligned with wellness, and they talk about the healing modalities and different modalities that they do, but it is in a very descriptive sense. I am making it so that you have the chance to experience it during a recorded episode, and other people get to experience it alongside you so that we can really see how it works. Instead of just this zoomed out experience, we get to zoom in and experience it. Find out more about that at wellnessinEverySeason.com/listener wellness guest. You have us interested. We have a good idea how to know when our gut's off track. What can we do to start reversing it?
I've got a book on a web page that gives the real keys. It's at getmewell.net. And the basis behind the book, people believe that genetics is what sets the stage for everything in life. It's a lie. Every gene has 30,000 ways it can express it. It's your lifestyle that determines how those genes express themselves. You can have a good gene and a bad lifestyle, and you never get the good expression. Bad genes with a good lifestyle never get the bad expression. It's called Healing Lifestyle on getmewell.net. It's got best information on simple things to change your lifestyle and rebuild health.
This is stuff that's built based on science and even more through the practical application with your patients.
I function differently clinically than most docs. Every person we work with is a clinical study. We don't do generic programs. I never have and probably never will. All alternative care work off protocols. A generic sheet of paper. I've specialized in chronic illness for 4 decades. It's been my life, my study. I grew up with it. I understand it really well. The top functional medicine doctor, Dr. Mark Hyman, When he gets a new patient, he does 100 different tests on those people. And there's things he can add on top of that. My intake is 4.5 times in, 450 tests for every person we take in right away on day one. No waiting for results. We do our own evaluations, and we can do those at a long distance of work with people all over the world. It's just as accurate in my office as it is. A lot of people are 1,000, some of them are on the other side of the world away from us. No difference. I'll give you this story. A young girl, 5 years old, spent 5.5 days in a research hospital connected to 2 medical schools, both known all over the world. 5.5 days in a research hospital. They did spend 5.5 days doing scans, tests, everything. At the end of 5.5 days, they told the parents, we have no idea what's going on with your daughter. Maybe you should see a rheumatologist, see what they can do for you. You go to rheumatologists, you're put on chemotherapy to deal with cancer issues. That's what they do. That's how they work. Family member was working with us, got a hold of their parents and said, you need to work with my mom. They got a hold of me in the afternoon, had them fill out paperwork. We did an evaluation one afternoon. This girl spent that 5.5 days in the hospital just laying in bed crying. She couldn't eat, she couldn't walk, she couldn't move. She's just absolutely miserable. We did an evaluation that evening. Next morning, she's out of bed. 3 days later, she's outside. 6 months down the road, she's healthier than she's ever been. She's 1,000 miles away. We never saw her face to face. We did all that over a distance of 1,000 miles. And we knew inside of 2 hours, everything that was wrong with her. We checked out every metabolic function. Good friend of mine's top functional medicine doc in a different part of the country. His metabolic testing is 52 tests or 5 times that. And it's not because I love testing. It's because people with chronic illness, you have to be definitive to find real root causes. People talk about root cause, but they don't have the tools to find them. You've got to be extensive with testing to find out. We have instant results. We're not waiting 6 weeks for the first round of tests. It's all done on day one. We know metabolic dysfunctions, hormonal dysfunctions, the root cause of what's going on inside of the gut, what foods destroy health, what foods build health, what they need to drink to build health. Then we go through infective issues. We find out what's going on with that stuff. Then we look at environmental toxins on day one. We know pretty much everything. We may find some levels of mold or toxicity that we're going to have to search out later. We know they're there and we need to search those out. You have to set that up so you can test people in their own home to evaluate those things. So that'll be another thing, but we know it's there.
Do you get blood work?
Hardly ever. The reality blood work, when you look at Lyme disease, the best Lyme lab in the world is IGeneX. About a decade ago, their tests were only 0 to 20% accurate if you got a blood sample in the first 1 to 2 weeks of infection, which nobody does. Outside that 1 to 2 week window, there's no accuracy. Now their website says their tests are not a diagnosis. They do not test for the strains people get sick from. B31 strain of Borrelia burgdorferi, that's only common around the Connecticut where Lyme disease starts. It's not common anywhere else in the world. You don't get that in the West Coast, Midwest, Southeast Coast. It's only around Connecticut where you get it. And that's where 90% of the tests are done. Labs have added some other strains, but the accuracy of those tests is atrocious. You look at the accuracy of the food intolerance testing, only 2 to 3% accurate. All they know how to do is measure the immune fractions. 97, 98% of the responses from foods is not mediated by the immune system. They have no idea what the mechanism is and no way to test it. 20 years ago, the top food intolerance testing was about $2,200 with a 2 to 3% accuracy. And most, it just doesn't work. Candida testing, most of cancer die from candida. Candida can morph into cancer into candida. They're totally tied together. When you look at the studies with that, literally relatively no clinical value of the testing of that. We just go down the line, one test after the other. The tests were designed after, Louis Pasteur's model that bug A caused disease A, bug B caused disease B, which Louis rejected by the end of his life. It's easy to manipulate people with lab tests. The science was set up by Rockefeller to support his investment in the pharmaceutical industry to increase his returns. And Rockefeller's the one who changed the whole course of medicine by lab tests and other things.
What do you do instead?
There's 4 systems of testing. Lab tests, we just talked about those. You have dark field or live cell microscopy where you get samples of blood. You don't put a backlight on a specialized microscope. You stick the lens in the blood and look around it. And I was at a Lyme forum where Tom Greer was running that forum. He's arguably the #1 researcher in Lyme disease. He was the head of the clinical pathology department in a research hospital. He had Lyme disease. So he was really invested in a wealth of information. He went on one of his forums and I asked him about that. He says, the problem with dark field is you need stains to identify the species in a microscope. In a dark field, you see a corkscrew bacteria go through. That could be a Borrelia, it could be a syphilis bacteria, it could be benign. You have no idea. So you go, oh. He says you need a specific stain to tell you what species that is. To me, that's the end of discussion. I'm not invested, but I know people who use those tools.
Using that to verify what you're already, yeah.
Yeah, you can't substantiate that. There's no way to test the therapy with that. Then you got electrical diagnostics. It's reasonably accurate for what it can find, but has no ability to determine cause or extent. And without being able to determine cause or extent, it has no value in clinical application on what to do. The last form of testing is muscle testing. It's 95 to 97% accurate in double-blind studies. There's a caveat on who does that and what their attitude is. I had a whole bunch of clarifiers with that. A person can't have an agenda with that. They can't want to have everybody be what their pet thing is that they're famous for. We deal a lot with Lyme disease and find it in over half the people we see that didn't know they had it because I look for it. The amount of Lyme disease that goes chronic is over the top. We can't measure percentage. The primary ways that people deal with it, they're only reducing symptoms and making the Lyme disease go into biofilms. And they'll hang out in the biofilms till they get stressed out, breaks of biofilms.
What are biofilms?
Biofilms, microbes in Lyme disease. 4 most common microbes: Borrelia bacteria, the true Lyme disease. Babesia is a single-celled animal beside your red blood cells, eats them from the inside. It's like a leaf miner, and it drops your hemoglobin ability to deal with oxygen. You got Ehrlichia, a small round bacteria that invades your immune cells and paralyze your immune system. You have Rickettsia, a small round bacteria that invades the lining of your gut, lining your blood vessels, makes so you can't digest nutrients and makes your blood vessels rough. So blood cells tumble going down the blood vessels instead of just slide, like a Teflon slide. Those hook together in geometric matrices, like interlaced finger. They release a substance, gelatin, that your immune system can't penetrate, antibiotics can't penetrate, and most of the things people use therapeutically to try and deal with these things can't penetrate those biofilms. So you got to be creative with what you do to penetrate those. We've got ways to get through. You have to find these things and you have to test what therapeutically they need to address it. And that changes multiple times as you heal. Lyme disease, even somebody who's had it for 3 decades or more, it doesn't take long to get rid of. What takes the longest is to deal with what set the stage for it. Lyme disease, as a for instance, the Ehrlichia and Rickettsia, that's usually gone in 6 to 8 weeks. The Lyme bacteria, Borrelia, usually takes about 2-3 weeks longer. BCA, Commonly, if somebody's reasonably healthy, the strongest form lasts 4 months. It takes at least 3 months, oftentimes four or more, to get rid of the yeast form of candida. The fungal form's 2 months longer than that. The fungal parasite form's 2 months longer than that. So you're talking 6, 8, 9 months to deal with gut issue. We're only talking 2 to do with 3/4 of Lyme disease.
It's layers of healing, and this is taken care of. So now here's the next thing. It's what it sounds like you're talking about.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
there's progression. You can't compartmentalize healing. You got to deal with it all at the same time.
this is why we come to you.
It's not stressful, it's complex, but it could be made simple.
We come to the specialist,
Yeah.
somebody who's gone to school for this.
Okay, you just said something really key. There was in Journal of American Medical Association, they call it JAMA, an article, I believe it was 2006, that said that medical education had changed in 110 years, and their students come out of that institution with no tools to be able to address, understand, find chronic illness. All they teach is acute illness. All of the doctor schools, all the alternative ones, chiropractic, naturopathic, homeopathic, no alternative school teaches chronic illness either. You got to go outside of the camps to learn.
That way of thinking helps you with patients because you're willing to think outside of modern medicine. And it sounds like also you're using tools that have been around for a long time instead of pharmaceutical tools.
They're the forgotten tools of yesterday's genius people who did amazing things.
Plato, Aristotle, let food be thy medicine.
Aristotle.
Aristotle.
I'm a student of physiology. That's the way my mind works. The only kind of construction jobs I didn't run was bridges and high rise. I've done everything. Ran those jobs when I was 17 years old.
I see how that correlates because you have to know how things work. Same with the human body. You're fixing the managers inside our bodies.
That's a good way to put it. Once you understand the foundations of function, it doesn't change. What goes on inside, exactly the same thing goes on inside soil. You look at the pH there, we only function in a narrow range of pH. We get off either side of that, too acidic or too basic, cell function falls off. That pH doesn't change from human to mammals, reptiles, birds, fish, soil, plants. Doesn't change.
That's true. My plants, they like the certain level for their acidity and everything else. I like having plants near me, so I have 4 here. I want to make sure I'm understanding. It sounds like a lot of the basic things you're having your patients do, like very basic building blocks, but then how long it's going to take and what the steps actually are depends on your specific patient.
Yeah. We dealt with a family from a different country that had all kinds of things going.
Got the whole family.
The mom came in first and I said, if I'm right, you got this in infancy. She was born, her mother almost bled to death, was given a transfusion in a foreign country and got all these things that are incurable. Hepatitis, Lyme disease, STDs.
Oh, because she was given dirty blood.
Huge bloom of stuff. She got that through nursing. Said, if you got it, your husband can have it, and all your children are going to have it, if I'm right. And brought them all in. I did something I'd never done before and do a family package with things. But I was right. The parents, husband and wife, they had hepatitis for over 35 years. I don't know if he had it before, as soon as they got together. He had it, it's 2 decades. And all the children had the same thing. Guess how long it takes us to get rid of hepatitis? The medicine thinks it's incurable. Guess how long?
No idea.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
It's gone.
6 weeks. Is that how long it takes lining or something?
No, when you understand physiology, do the right things. Same ballpark, 6 weeks. It's gone.
Most of your testing is muscle testing. You're doing about 400 tests?
450 on average. Plus I do lab tests on urine, get a bunch of metabolic markers. I use a BIE to get some measurements. There's no other way to get those. bioimpedance analysis. With that, you get something called a phase angle. Phase angle is the best marker on how healthy a person is. Those numbers go from 0 to 12. 0 is poor health. Anything 5 and below is really bad. I've seen some 11s. When I'm exercising quite a bit, I'm usually around 11. 6 is mediocre. 9 is pretty good.
So 9 is where you want to be, 9 and above.
You want to be that. Certain ways to get there. Exercise is one that you can undo a lot of unhealthy lifestyle, but it's by exercise, the right kind. There's another measurement with body capacitance. That's the nutrient density in your cells. With a scale of 4 to 1200, if they're 800 and above, they're going to start heal reasonably fast and take off quick. If they're close to 12, they'll take off really quick. But if they're considerably below 800, they're going to be real slow in healing. You can tell people on day one, you're going to be a fast healer, you're going to be a slow healer. This is the reason why. And it's going to take a while to build nutrient density in your tissues. Once we do, healing will take off faster. It's not going to take off like a rocket ship. You got to go slow. It allows you to be more honest. You can measure fat content, lean tissue, water content, the content inside of cells compared to outside of cells, and it lets you know whether people are being built physiologically the way they should be or backwards.
Interesting. I was thinking one day it'd be amazing to have a retreat that I take people on, being a wellness coach, of let's go to another country and where you can have all the scans done. You're telling me you can do what all those scans can do, but better.
Way better. Invite me over. It would blow your mind. I did a talk. A lady had been boxed recently. She started having heart problems. They put in a pacemaker in her. And I was talking with a small group and said, you all want to come up here and I'll show you some testing. Inside of 5 minutes, I showed her what her root issues were and what caused her heart issues. Blew her away. I test much more extensively. You need a bigger scope to make sure you have everything.
This root causes this, which causes this.
Connect all the dots before you start with somebody.
So are you telling me because the DEXA scan, you have to be a certain age or you have conditions? I always thought that could be the best way to see how you're doing.
Absolutely not. We've had 4-year-olds come in for testing. They've seen a multitude of docs. Nobody helped them at all. We had one 4-year-old come in, not one hair on their body. Not one. Mom was really neurotic and was taking this child from one doc to another, never followed up on anything. And the husband was just pulling his hair out with this whole thing. He went home. They'd been working with a rheumatologist. They had him on methotrexate, was a chemo drug for cancer. It killed all his cells to make hair.
Good and bad, all of it.
Every rapidly dividing cell it kills, your gut lining should replace itself every 24 hours. You can never repair your gut lining. Your blood is one of your faster growing cells. You can't replace new blood. Your skin's fast growing. You can't replace your skin. You got all these things that are killed. And here you 4-year-old, not a hair on their body. We did an evaluation. He went home. His folks tried to give him methotrexate. He said, I'm not doing that anymore. I want to do what the doctor you took me to today showed me. I know he can heal me. Our testing is compelling. You can't convince a 4-year-old. You got to show them. And the way I test, I can prove before they get up off the table that we can get them better. We can prove it.
You've talked to me about the testing. You've talked about how much it's gut health. That's really what will help reset our bodies. The lining and how it needs to be like this and not like this, and how different foods, medications, lifestyle can do this to us. It makes sense to me. I have family members shocked I don't have hypertension. I remind them I don't smoke, I handle my stress, and I exercise, and I am the ideal weight that my body wants to be. My body has this is where I want you to be. If you're not, you're going to feel this way. If you're too heavy or too thin, you're going to feel this. I'm in tune with my body to know where I need to be. They think it's hereditary, and it's not. Many things are lifestyle, and we forget that.
Started working with one of my son-in-laws. His blood pressure was over 200 on the top number, and bottom number was crazy high too. It was nuts. 5 days we got that thing, and blew him away, blew his friends away. He rode motorcycles. I went for a motorcycle ride with his buddy. He goes, "Wow, you really rode different today. What's up?" He says, "I don't feel like I got the weight of the world on my shoulders. I can breathe." The hell's on? He says, "I started working with this dog. Maybe I should do that too. Maybe you should."
That's how you get a lot of patients.
It's a good mix of referrals. We're different. We walk with people. I'm one of the few docs people talk to. If you can't take a history and talk with somebody, you can't help. The history gives you all the clues. It takes quite a bit to go over a history the right way, interact with people and let them know what causes everything.
Do you take insurance?
Nobody can offer you help that can take insurance. Diagnoses are only an insurance code to give somebody the ability to bill and get paid from insurance.
That's what I used to do, medical billing and coding.
Medical doctors own all of the codes.
I feel like it's more pharmaceuticals.
They're tied into pharmaceutical, but they own all the codes.
Yep.
Anybody who's not in that system can't use them.
How do you set it up with people? Can they pay with FSA or HSA, health savings plans?
Generally,
pre-tax?
that's an open door.
If you're looking to wealth build, HSA, FSA, 401k, those are where you want to be pre-tax.
Yeah.
And your overall health is an amazing investment in yourself.
Yeah. There's no one can offer you health through a paid insurance system. In Canada, come to the States and pick out. It's out of pocket. You have the highest accountability with the highest integrity, and you get the best care when you pay out of pocket. Every system that gets paid through those governmental or oversight payments, such as insurance, they don't allow the therapeutic intervention that gives you health. They only compensate for the reduction in management of symptoms.
Correct. For people wondering, is this going to be out of my price range? Do I need to save up? It's so varied. What can you offer your price range to be?
Most of what I deal with is people with chronic illness. It can take at least 6 months to deal with stuff. If you went to another clinic to get lab work that's only get you a fraction of the information that I get, you're going to drop over $9,000 for the lab work. We redo that at the end of every month. So at the end of 6 months, you're talking over $50,000 worth of lab work alone. That's no care and that's nothing else. For 6 months of our care, we're less than the cost of the lab work. We're $7,500, and supplements are on top. It depends on what somebody is, what those are going to be. That's dealing with chronic illness. People that don't have chronic illness, things are a lot less. Say somebody got exposed to Lyme disease, they're reasonably healthy and they don't have gut issues. You can usually have them done in 6 to 8 weeks.
What about someone who just feels off? They can't really put their finger on it, but feel off, which can be many of us.
Some of the common things with the gut being off, bowel habits are really huge. 2 to 3 bowel movements a day is normal. Normal comes from societies that don't have gastrointestinal disease. They're on whole food diets. With a whole food diet, you pretty much go every time. 50% of the doctor visits in America has gut issues. And the doctors are not equipped with the most basic knowledge to even understand what's going on. They never ask about it. You cannot accept less than 2 bowel movements a day. You're toxic, period. Weed I had one person said their girlfriend went once every 2 to 3 weeks. I thought they were joking, but she came in later, how long they weren't together anymore. She got giddy when her bowel got up 2 to 3 times a day, and her life changed.
Yeah, I
And
bet.
she got giddy. Our record was once every 5 to 6 weeks. Most people think once a day is okay. You take all your carnivore people, have no fiber, no nutrients in their diet. They go bricks, they get hemorrhoids, fissures, all kinds of problems with that. And their hormones are completely wrecked. You cannot accept less than two a day. So if you're less than two a day, if the stools, you got Glade air freshener on the back of your toilet because it stinks the room up. You got mucus in your stools, your guts and ones. You got food particles in your stools. The rinds of beans, that's not food particles. The rinds of tomatoes, that's not food particles. But you start seeing streaks of whole foods in there. Those are issues. If you got a lot of gas, you got issues. If the gas smells, you certainly got issues. So those are some of the simplest ways to tell. If your hormones are off, you got issues. You got rashes, you got issues. You got respiratory problems, you got issues.
Fatigue. That's super common.
Okay, that is because the adrenals being attacked by all the toxicity. You got hormone dysregulation, you got issues. If your cycles are rough, you got issues. Normal cycles should start with dark blood and shouldn't go bright. When you ovulate, there's cells that surround all your eggs, and those cells, before you ovulate, they create a fluid and makes a cyst in the ovary. Ovulation is the bursting that cyst, and the fluid pushes the egg out so the fallopian tube can catch it.
Mhm.
Once the egg goes out, the cells that surrounded the egg make a new follicle called the Graafian follicle. That makes progesterone makes the arteries in the uterine lining clamp. So that blood should be stagnant for 10 days before menses starts. If that blood's bright, it never clamps. This is why I ask women so many questions about parts of their cycle to let you know how their hormones are working.
Society, we're not taught to pay attention to our poop or our cycles. And what is the blood? The only time we care about our mucus lining is when we're trying to get pregnant. It's crazy.
You can ask simple questions to understand how healthy. You got brain fog, you got some problem. Autoimmune issues, you got some problem. So everything ties back into the gut. And if there's anything going on, the gut's an issue, and there's no program that'll address these things. They all compartmentalize. They sell you a boatload of products that are oftentimes really toxic. Been working with one person for close to a decade, and occasionally I'll go and get one of them programs and stuff, and I get a call shortly thereafter is totally crashes every system. Those things are really toxic and not the way to address them. If a family, mom, dad, and four kids all have the same thing, you're going to have at least three, probably 5 to 6 different ways people are addressed in that family. And it all changes. No program can follow and do that. They're not honest with themselves and they're not honest with their marketing.
Sums it up. I'm a family of 6. I have 4
Mhm.
kids. You mentioned your website in a book. Is that a free or paid version?
Yep. The book I got is one that is worthwhile for everybody to put on their show. It's called Exposing Lyme and Chronic Illness. You can't address Lyme disease without the underlying issues and complications. There's immune function here. There's 5 or 6 chapters on physiology, hormones, and intimacy, and how all that works. There's stories at the end of every chapter on somebody that went through that, except for hormones and intimacy.
Sounds like this book is worth reading. Your website is the best place if we want to work with you.
Yeah, well, that one site, getmewell.net, it's got links to my website. It's got links to my podcast, book. Just clickable links. So it's the easiest way to find things. And it's the best thing.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this conversation. I have so much to process from this, and I'm sure listeners too as well. Thank you for your time. This was amazing.
Thanks for the invite.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope that you found the answers that you needed and you had some amazing aha moments. Please share this episode with others because it helps us align ourselves and then better align the world so that we can seek the healing that we really are looking for. As part of the legal language, I am a certified life coach with a bachelor's in applied health. That is what I am leaning on for this. This is general advice. Take it as such. See you in the next episode.